Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're doing our review for the all-new Ninja Detect Kitchen System. This is an upgrade of sorts to the Ninja Foodi Power Blender Ultimate System. Is it really better than Ninja's previous kitchen systems? Watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. One quick note, our reviews are based upon the things that we think are important. That might be a little bit different for you, so what we recommend doing is after watching our video, you pull up a couple of videos from different content creators. That way you can get a much wider range of opinions, concerns, and preferences that'll help you make a much more informed buying decision. And that is the most important thing of all. Here's everything you get with the Ninja Detect Kitchen System. You got your blender base, you got a 72-ounce pitcher. The lid has a spout that snaps closed and open. It has a little rubber seal there. There's also a little piece of metal that comes across right here, and that helps break up stuff that's coming out of the spout. It's got a release button up here, and when you press that, you get a handle that pops up so you can release the top. In the pitcher, you got your blade tree. This is one thing that people complain about a lot with Ninja is that this thing, whoa, almost dropped that. That could have been bad. Anyway, this thing can be really dangerous because it's super sharp and it's got 6 blades on it. For the most part, I try to leave that in the blender and not touch it any more than I have to. The pitcher has a max capacity of 72 ounces, but if you look right here, it says 64 ounces max liquid. So I guess it'll take 72 ounces if there's a combination of liquid and stuff, I don't know. In any case, probably don't fill it past that max line anyway. I noticed that even if I fill it past that, even with hard stuff, it ends up getting liquefied anyway, and you start getting stuff kind of coming up underneath the lid a little bit. So I would just use that as a max fill line, just in general. In addition to the pitcher, you got a single serve cup that comes with this. This holds a maximum of 21 ounces, and the single serve cup has its own little blade assembly here. The gear underneath here is made of hard rubber. I've had these Ninja systems for a while and I've never really had a problem with any of these wearing out or chipping apart or anything like that, so probably not going to have a problem with that. In addition to that, you get a lid with a little spout on it, like that. Snaps closed, and this twists right on top of your single serve cup. Next, you get a processing pitcher with a max capacity of 64 ounces also. The lid locks on and pops off just like that, and you pull this up. It's got a nice rubber seal here on that lid, and also a small chute with a pusher. Inside here we have our processing blade, but in addition to that, you get a dough blade right here, and that just fits in here the same way your processing blade does. And you also get this standoff right here, which would go right down in there, and that is for the processing discs. If you have it turned this way, then we can use the slicer, but if you turn it over the other way like this, then you would be using the shredder. As far as size goes, this thing is pretty darn tall. In fact, it's tall enough to where it might not fit underneath your upper cabinets. If you measure from the bottom all the way to the top, you're looking at about 17 3/4 inches. As far as depth goes, we're looking at about 7 3/4 inches. And as far as width, should be the same. And yep, we're right about 7 3/4. So if you're thinking about getting one of these and you want to set it on your countertop, make sure you measure the space between your countertop and the bottom of your upper cabinets. As far as operation goes, this thing seems like it's going to be super complicated, but it's actually really easy. When we turn this on, we really only have 3 modes. We have manual mode, where you would just push this button to start it and you'd be able to manually control the speed by turning the dial just like this. Next, we have Blend Sense mode. It'll do slightly different things depending on whether you have your pitcher on here, whether you have your food processor container, or whether you have your single serve cup. And basically all you do with that is you just start it and the machine will sense what you have in the pitcher based upon the amount of force that's on the blade and the type of tension that exists, and it will come up with a program based upon that. Then you don't have to do anything. You just let it go and it will pulse, change the speeds, and do whatever it's got to do. And if it needs you to do anything like add liquid, it'll tell you. Pretty cool, actually. Over here, you have your mode button. And you can see that since I have the regular pitcher on here, the only options here are large chop, small chop, and mince. If I were to remove the pitcher and put the single serve cup on here, you'd see that I don't even have access to that button at all. It won't let me push it. Now, if I were to take that off and put on the processing container, you can see that I can select that again. And this time it's got large chop, small chop, mince, and disc. Yes, I know I don't have the discs in here right now, but those work in the processing container, so that's why the option pops up. So yeah, you can start it on disc even if you don't have the discs in there, but you know what, why would you do that? The only other button we have on here is pulse. And all that does is make the blender go when you push it and stop when you let go, just like this. One thing about this blender that I really feel is annoying is how loud it is. If you've ever owned Ninja products before, you know that they're all pretty loud, but this one is super loud. In fact, we're gonna do a little sound test to see exactly how loud it is. I'll tell you right now that this thing is slightly louder when it's empty versus being full, obviously, but it's still pretty close, and a lot of times people don't fill their blenders up all the way anyway, so we're just gonna do the decibel test with it empty, and you can figure on it being a little bit less depending on how full it is. And we'll do this on the lowest speed, and I'll slowly bring it up so you can see how much it's affected on this meter. So not quite 90 decibels, but pretty freaking loud. You know, let me know down in the comments exactly how big a deal noise is to you when you're making a buying decision. For me, normally I don't really care that much, but when I turned this thing on for the first time, I was a little surprised at how loud it was, so it was a little bit shocking for me too. The base has 4 suction cups down here on the bottom. That helps keep it from sliding around on surfaces. Just make sure that you keep your countertop really clean and you don't have any crumbs or anything sitting on those suction cups. This has a lot of torque, so if you're not making a good connection down there, the entire base is gonna twist. For testing, we didn't use the manual setting, we used more the pulse, the blend sense, and the mode settings. For the blend sense tests, first we tried to do some peanut butter. We used about 3 cups of roasted peanuts and a 1/4 cup of oil. We closed up the machine, started it up, and let it auto sense the peanut butter. You can see by the video, it's really doing a good job on this. It's starting, stopping, adjusting the speed, and even pulsing a little bit, trying to work those peanuts down, and it's doing an amazing job. You can see that the peanut butter put the blender into thick mode. I didn't have to stop the blend one time to scrape down the sides of the pitcher, or to stir anything up, or to give it any kind of help whatsoever. When it got finished, I did scrape down the sides just a little bit, but that was just to get some of those crumbs off of there, and then I just pulsed it once or twice. That's no big deal, and you really can't expect anything that gets splattered up a little bit on the sides above the blades to really get cleaned up at all. Pouring this out of the pitcher, you see it's really nice and smooth. I did have a couple of little tiny chunks in there, but that was pretty much comprised of the stuff I scraped off of the sides, so really not a big deal at all. If you're the type of person that likes chunky peanut butter better, you can always take a little bit more roasted peanuts, throw them in at the very end, and then pulse those a few times, and you should get the result you're looking for. But for me, this was pretty close to perfect. After the peanut butter, I did a cleaning cycle. Really, with just about all blenders, all you need is a little bit of warm water and dish soap. You just squirt in a tiny little bit of dish soap, fill the pitcher up about 3/4 of the way with warm water, and then you just run blending cycles. You can see that this is really getting all that stuck on peanut butter off the sides of the pitcher. This is the preferred way that I always use to clean Ninja blenders, especially because of that blade tree that they use. Taking that out and manually cleaning it could be a little bit on the dangerous side. So being able to clean the pitcher with the thing still in there is a real big plus. Once that cycle got done, I poured out the dirty water and rinsed it out. And here's the cleaning results after 2 cycles. I did 2 cycles because peanut butter tends to stick quite a bit, and I wanted to get every last little bit out of there. You can see it did a really great job on the cleaning. There's just a couple of little specks all the way down at the bottom, down inside back where the base of the blade tree would be. That's the only extra cleaning that I had to do, and it's really nice that I was able just to take that blade tree out and set it aside. Next, we did a full pitcher of strawberry and mixed berry smoothie, and we went purposely a little bit low on the liquid just to try to make this thing a nice thick shake. We went ahead and started up the blender on Blend Sense, of course, and after sensing for a little while, it again put it back into thick blend mode. And then once again, it pulsed a few times and changed the speed a few times as well. And it really needed to do that because there was some fruit all the way at the top of the pitcher that wasn't getting blended. And because it did all that, it sucked that down to the bottom and ended up blending that in smoothly with everything else. You can see the result on that is almost smoothie bowl consistency. Really, if I had to compare it to anything, we're talking soft serve ice cream, something like that. Came out nice and smooth, and it didn't really seem like the blender was really even trying that hard. We decided to see what would happen if we tried to thin this out a little bit, so we added a little bit more milk into the mix and ran the Blend Sense again. Again, it was on thick blend mode, but this time it didn't vary the speed at all, and it didn't need the pulse either. Once that blend was finished, here is the consistency that we got. Still a really thick smoothie, except this time it was a heck of a lot more pourable than it was the first time. This right here is about the consistency that I like smoothies for myself. So obviously I was pretty happy with that result. Next, we used the single serve cup to make a much thinner banana smoothie. You can make those thick smoothies in the single serve cup also, but in this case we wanted to do something a little bit different to see if the blender would treat it differently. So we ran it again on Blend Sense. You can see it just kept it on regular blending the entire time. You can see the results here. It's a heck of a lot thinner and probably the consistency that most people like. This was about as thick as drinkable yogurt that you buy from the grocery store. You can see that the texture looks really good on this too. Next, we try to do a few things on the mode. We removed the pitcher and put on the food processing attachment. Then we grabbed some large onions and cut them in half so we can try doing chops in 3 different sizes. First, we ran the large chop program. You can see that the blender automatically starts and stops. And once we got done, here is the result that we got for our large chop. You can see that it's got pretty good consistency. There are a couple of pieces that are a little bit weird looking, but for the most part, it's all pretty uniform. Next, we ran the same test over again, except this time we moved it over to the small chop setting. After letting that run, here's what the small chop looked like. And here's a close-up of those results. You can see definitely a lot smaller pieces. These are a lot more uniform as well. Next, we ran the test one more time, except this time we put it on minced mode. After running that cycle, here's how the finished product looked on that. And again, here's a close-up. You can tell that it looks an awful like the small chop mode. In fact, I kind of thought they were the same. But if we lay out all 3 of our different chops side by side, you can definitely see that that mince did come out smaller. It's a little bit debatable if that mince is really small enough to be a mince. To me, it was okay, but for you, maybe you might want to pulse it a couple more times after that. It just depends on how small you want them. Next, I did another cleaning cycle with the processor bowl on there, the same way I did with the regular pitcher. And you can see right here that it cleans up the exact same way the pitcher does. I was concerned that it might not do as good a job because it's got the much bigger processor blades on it, but I was wrong, worked fine. Next, we decided to try out the disc mode. So we put the disc in, sliced side up, and we sliced up some cucumbers. The chute isn't super wide, so we did have to shave down the side of the cucumber just a little bit in order to get it to fit through. So that's one thing that could have been improved on this. If they were able to make that just a little bit bigger, it would have been a little bit better. But you can see it made really short work of those cucumbers, and they were done almost instantaneously. You can see the consistency on the cucumbers is really good, so I don't really have too many complaints about that. Just remember, if you're putting cucumbers in this thing and you don't want one flat side on them, to use thinner cucumbers. The next slicing test we did was for carrots. You can see that it powered right through the carrots just like it did with the cucumbers. One thing I didn't like about this is the fact that the pusher is just one single piece. A lot of times their pusher will come in 2 pieces. It would have the normal wire piece that we have, and a lot of times they have a separate cutout in the middle with a separate pusher for smaller round things. That would have definitely been welcome, because once the carrots were short enough to clear the pusher, they'd fall down on their side and start getting sliced sideways. So when you look at your finished carrots, you have a whole bunch of long slivers left in there, and that really wasn't ideal. Not really a super big deal, but I kind of felt like that was a little bit of an oversight. For our next test, we turned that disc over so we can use the shredder. For this, we're going to shred cheddar cheese. Obviously, the block of cheese is going to be too thick to fit through that pusher, so we had to cut it down quite a bit in order for it to fit. And when you're dealing with a full block of cheese like that, you're probably going to have an awfully big food processor if you're going to get that down there without having to cut it down at all. So not that big a deal. It went through all the cheese that would fit in the pitcher in about 30 seconds or so. And here is the resulting shred. Pretty nice and uniform. There's a few little balls of cheese in there somehow. Probably just a little bit of the stuff that got stuck on top of the disc. So all those blending tests went super good. As an added bonus, we have a little bit more information that you're probably not going to get anywhere else. First, if you have an existing Ninja Power Blender or the Ninja Power Blender Ultimate system, then you might have seen these single serve cups. It's a single serve cup with a tamper built into the top. These don't come with the Detect systems. So if you have one of these, you probably have it left over from one of your other systems, or you bought it individually from the Ninja website. Out of curiosity, I've already checked the pictures from the older systems and they don't fit on this. But I was surprised to find out that the single serve cups do fit. And you can run them on BlendSense or on manual. See? So that's something that's really surprising to me because I don't really remember the last time I bought a brand new blender like this and anything from any of the older ones would work on it. It seems like they change all that stuff over every time and everything's keyed differently. So the fact that I can still use this thing was pretty awesome. But wait, there's more.
And then...
This is my Ninja Professional Food Processor. This guy right here is about 5 or 6 years old. Does the processing bowl look familiar? It is exactly the same bowl. But you can see they're keyed differently on the bottom, so I can't just take this and put it on here. See? Won't lock in. So you're probably thinking, why the hell are you even showing me this then? Well, the main thing is because these Ninja Professional Food Processors come with a whole bunch of discs. And guess what? This disc right here that comes with the Detect system is the exact same disc that comes with the Ninja Professional Food Processor. Same slicer, same shredder. Now this is all that comes with the Detect system, and perusing Ninja's website, they don't have other discs available, but they do for that. So this disc here has a grater on one side and it has a crinkle cutter on the other side. So really it's a similar disc to this, except it's got the crinkle cut on it. This will work just fine in your Detect system. So that's really great, which means that also the grater disc here will work as well. Obviously, if you don't have a Ninja Professional Food Processor, this stuff might not mean as much to you, but to me, it's a really big deal that you can expand your system with some of your older stuff. That's not something that I expected to be able to do at all. Now you add in the fact that this is about 800 watts more powerful than this, means that the food processing on the Detect system is better than the dedicated food processor pretty much in every possible way. By the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. You know, I got to admit, when I ordered the Detect system, I was really skeptical about this whole BlendSense thing. I thought it was just going to be a big gimmick and it wasn't really going to work at all. However, this thing pleasantly surprised me. All the standard blends came out good, and BlendSense automatically pulsing and changing speeds really did make a big difference. The nut butter really was a standout. It's really the only time I can remember making nut butter where I never had to scrape the bowl really at all. But really, my favorite part of the entire thing was the fact that I was able to use all my discs from my old Ninja Foodi food processor. The extra discs that I had laying around for that really helped expand this system even more. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Ninja Detect Kitchen System, we have an Amazon affiliate link to it down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, we do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay, 1 cent. If you like this video, you might like this video right here where we reviewed the Ninja Foodi Power Blender Ultimate System. If you check that one out, it might help you compare these a little bit better head to head. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon. And until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.